I bought this old Tesla Model S super cheap and I've owned it for around 8 months now. In that time, it broke. Then it broke again, and today I'm going to try and fix it myself while wishing I would have just got a new one to begin with. Now, up front, it was certainly cheap. This P90D, which cost around $130,000 new, only cost me right around $11,000 used with the 100,000 miles on it. My car was a little cheaper than usual as I bought it at auction where it was marked dead simply because it was locked down by its previous owner and hadn't been charged in a while. Once we got everything in order, it drove perfect, and I thoroughly enjoyed it so much that when a deal came about on this Plaid, I bought it. And guess what? It came broken. Now we'll go through all of our Tesla's issues here in a moment, but having both the first generation and latest generation Model S together has provided me a really great perspective on how these cars have evolved over nearly a decade. And truthfully, it's not by a whole lot. Think of it like upgrading your iPhone. Sure, the newer one is a bit sleeker and quicker, but it's all a very familiar experience. If you were to go through every main feature on either of these cars, I don't think you'd find a whole lot that's different. As a matter of fact, the older cars have some stuff that the newer ones don't, like a retractable sunroof. The new cars just have fixed glass. On the other hand, the older ones don't have as full function of a dash camera as the newer models, but that definitely shouldn't be a deal breaker for anyone, since you can get a really high-tech dash camera like this Vantrue Nexus 4 Pro. I just installed one in my Genesis and it's really solid. This is a 4K 3-channel dash camera, which means it comes with 3 cameras. One records your front perspective, the other records in the cabin of the car, and there's also one that captures your rear so you have all-around protection. Everything is really well thought out here. Each camera moves so you can position them perfectly. You can set its high-resolution display to show you a live view of any of the cameras or all 3 of them at once. And the main camera unit attaches to the powered mount via a magnet, so it's really easy to pop on and off. Even the 12-volt plug has a USB input, so you can still use it to charge your phone while the camera's running. But the best part here by far is the N4 Pro's image quality. Overall, it's what sets this dash camera apart from the rest that I've ever used. It's outstanding at every perspective, even after sunset, thanks to its Sony Starvis 2 sensor, and with PlatePix technology, license plates stay amazingly clear and easily legible even at distance. And you'll stay protected in parking lots with 4 different parking modes. The M4 Pro will detect movement around your car while you're away from it and will record these events. Through the Vantrue app, you can ultimately customize the camera and its recording functions and quickly download footage from the camera's SD card straight to your phone.
With the amount of distracted driving that goes on nowadays, driving without a dash camera to me is like driving without a steering wheel. I just won't do it. This camera, the Nexus 4 Pro, it's truly amazing and a great cost-effective way to protect yourself. If you don't already have a dash camera, I highly suggest you check out this one right here. I went ahead and dropped a link to it over at Amazon down in the description.
Now, when my first Model S showed up from the auction, I really didn't know what to expect since it was sold as is, but it ended up being in way better shape than I ever anticipated. After cleaning it all up, you could tell it was well kept, and the car drove really well, although there was a little bit of a clunk from the front end over bumps. Also, there was a notification on the display saying that the main battery fuse needed replacement. For the fuse, I took the car to the service center, where I was charged right around $300 to get it replaced. And for the clunk in the front end, I ordered a new set of front control arms. These are a well-known wear item in these cars, and really in all cars, and since there's so many aftermarket options available, they're really cheap. I paid $100 for a front set and installed them in just a few hours. It's pretty straightforward to do as long as you have enough space to cut the front bolts out that are holding the factory arms in. It's kind of strange that Tesla originally installed these in a way where it makes them impossible to remove without having to cut them, but it's still definitely a DIY job. Now, only a few weeks later, the driver's side window stopped working. It was clear the motor was still turning, but the window itself wouldn't move, so the regulator broke. Again, this is another well-known issue with these cars, and it's very similar to replacing a regulator on any car, except for the part that it's a Tesla, and then you have to be very careful of all the other electronics that are in the door while you're taking it apart. At one point during the job, I must have messed up and popped a fuse that took out all 4 of the door's electronics, and since the doors open and close electronically, it turned the car into a bit of a puzzle. But after some acrobatics, an $80 regulator, and a few fuses, everything was back up and working properly, until the trunk stopped latching. I know all these issues sound like first world problems, but this one in particular was a pain and made the car a real nuisance to use. Because the trunk was basically stuck open, it would constantly ding as you would drive it. It also disabled autopilot and the door locks, so if you left the car in a parking lot, anyone could just walk right up to it and hop in. Like all the other problems I've had on this car, this is a very common one, and it comes down to an actuator that's located behind the trim here, just a little motor that basically closes this latch shut once the trunk finds itself all the way down. Well, I tend to DIY fix everything. On these Teslas, it's a little bit of a different story because sourcing the parts can be strange. Now, when it came to the control arms or the window actuator, these are mechanical parts. So there's a lot of third-party companies that make them. But when it comes to everything that's electronic on these cars, they're pretty proprietary to Tesla. And I don't know how you get these parts from Tesla directly. You can find the part numbers by doing general Google searches, and there's guys reselling these parts from Tesla at a pretty steep markup, but supposedly the general public can buy them from Tesla. But if you call your local service center, they never answer the phone. So what I've done is I've always filed for a service, even when something small breaks, and Tesla for free can remotely diagnose the car, everything that's electrical, throws an error code, and then they'll send you a quote which will include that part number and the labor to replace it. In this case, for our trunk latch, I got a quote back for around $110 for mobile service. That means a guy drives out to me, he comes with the part, and he installs it. Again, for $110, I said, fine, that's like crazy. Why wouldn't I just have him do it? The problem is, after I accepted the quote, they went and revised it, and it turned into like $250, which again, I was fine with. They added another part to it for $250. So instead of just replacing that actuator or motor that's behind here, they also replaced this latch as well. Now, included in the $250 fee was about a half hour of labor, and I can tell you, the mobile service guy was out at my house for over 2 hours fixing this trunk actuator and latch, so I think it ended up being money well spent. And now we get to our last thing, at least for now, that is broken on this car, and that's the charge port door. Now, this thing has been funny pretty much since I got the car, but it would work, and that's why I initially never got it done. When you'd hit the button to open this door, whether on the app or on the screen in the car, the door would open and close a few times, and then it would stay open and allow you to plug the car in. But as of late, this door's gone haywire. I've seen it open and close at random times, and the last few times I've gone to charge it, it will just open and close about a half dozen times before it closes itself and stays closed, and it won't allow you to plug a charger in. On the dashboard, it constantly says that the charge port door is open when it's not. So clearly it's malfunctioning. And again, this is another super common failure point on the old Model S's. Now, the first time I booked Tesla service, I actually mentioned that this charge port door was acting up, and they quoted me around $260 just to replace it. And again, at the time, it was working well enough to where I just said, don't worry about it for now. Now, when we got the trunk actuator done, I went and I put in for the charge port door again, and the price went from $260 to $360. It was an extra $100, and I think the difference was actually in the parts cost. At that point, again, the thing was still allowing me to charge it, so I said, all right, if it's $360, they can forget it for now. Most recently, when I put in to get the charge port door replaced, the price jumped to $500. And of course, I'm at the point where I need to replace it because I can't charge the car. Now, the increase in price this time came from somebody tacking on like a $120 diagnostic fee, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they're already telling me what the problem is in the quote, and that is to replace the charge port door. So at this point, I just took the part number that was provided in this quote, I put it online, and I found that there's somebody selling them on eBay for right around the same price that Tesla was selling them for, and that's like $150 or $160. So before we start the repair, I want to put this car in service mode so we don't have anything mess up, anything come to life while we're working on our charge port door. And in order to do that, you supposedly just hit that there and then type in the word service and hit OK. Now, puts the car into this service mode. Now, our charge door here is attached to the taillight assembly. Once you get this plastic trim off, which is just with one screw, you have access to our entire assembly back here. Now, we've got this orange high voltage wire, which is very intimidating. We're not going to mess with that. That's for the actual charge port itself. We just want to get to the door. In order to do that, there's 3 nuts holding this thing in. One is right there, so we're going to have to use a wrench to get to that one. Then the other 2 are back here behind this aluminum tape. I'm struggling to get this out, and it seems that there's something below the actual door here that's holding it in place. So we come over and look at our replacement part, you can see there's this big motor underneath, and that's probably what's in there. So I do now believe we're going to have to mess with that wire. We're not going to undo the high voltage wire from the charge port. We're just going to want to take the port out of place, and it looks like it's held in with a couple of screws in each corner. The job should be downhill from here, but it's a Tesla, so something has to go wrong. 2 of the 4 screws came out just fine, but the lower 2 ones just spun in place. I tried all the standard tricks like pulling against the screw while trying to turn it, and it didn't help at all. Either way, I'm making more contact with these orange wires, which I don't like, so I opted to pull the fireman's safety loop, which is under the hood. There's these bright orange labels everywhere to point you exactly where it is, and once you pull up some of the cowling, it easily disconnects. Now, there's no high voltage running through the car, and I ended up taking this rotary tool and I cut notches in the thin edges of the charge port and just a little pry outward, and they broke right off and popped the port out of place. Now the taillight came out and we could see exactly why our screws got stuck. There's these little nuts that are connected to the body of the car and they've broken off. I'm guessing someone replaced the same door or taillight once before and over tightened them. It's an easy enough fix with some new rib nuts and bolts, but for right now, let's just swap this charge door, which is held on with just a few Torx screws, and put everything back together. I went and reconnected our safety loop, and I've got this all put back together, but loosely, because we want to just check the alignment of the door now, make sure it will open and close without clipping the body of the car. The charger is, of course, all hooked up. However, it's not affixed to the door, just in case we have to take this all apart again. We're still in service mode, but the good thing is it's not saying that the charge port is open. So if we go to controls, we could see this no longer says that it's open when we hit the button. Now it says that it's open, and we should have a door that actually works. And there it is. As much as I don't like this right here, I can tell you I've got this sat in its plastic seat back here, and it is keeping it firm against the body of the car. Also, this last nut seems to go against this little piece of plastic right here. I don't know how much that's doing, but when we come from the outside and we push on the actual charge port itself, this is the part that we screwed in back there. It's firm as could be, and I don't see there being any issue using this in the interim. At this point, it is very apparent why these old Model S's can be had so cheap, but I still think they're an amazing value as long as you can DIY fix them every time they break, and as long as you don't have some sort of catastrophic failure, like a drive unit going out or like a high voltage battery failure. But if you think about all the different electronic components that are stuffed into these cars and, well, their age and usage, there's just more stuff to go wrong. For example, the door handles are electronically actuating. I hear that those break all the time on these cars. There's obviously 4 of them. Every time one breaks, you're out a few $100s repairing or replacing it. Or like the charge receptacle that we just got out of place. It's another common failure part. You saw how simple it was to kind of get out as long as your fasteners aren't broken on the outside of the car. And if you took it to Tesla, that would probably be an $800 to $1,200 repair. But if you did it at home, it probably cost you around $300 to $400. So even though I started out paying just around $11,000 for this car at auction, I probably got closer to $13,000 or $14,000 plus a lot of my time into it. So if this car continues to consistently have little failures here and there, like I've already experienced, and honestly I anticipate that it will, it'll end up costing about the same or a little bit more than going and leasing a brand new Model Y. You get a car that's 9 years newer, you don't have to pay for all up front. If you do the math, the lease term will end up costing you exactly what I paid for this car when it's all done, right around $11,000. You're gonna have to put a couple thousand down. So right there, that's the total amount of money that I've already spent on this car in just 8 months. Not to mention you get a brand new car with much newer technology that you'll never have to worry about anything breaking because it will be under warranty for the entire term. So it's pretty clear that that's a much better value than even these old cheap Model S's. Even with all of its issues, I have thoroughly enjoyed driving this car so much over the last several months that when I saw the deal pop up on this 2021 Tesla Plaid, I couldn't resist. This car only has 20,000 miles on it, and I actually bought it from Tesla. But not like Tesla when you go on their website and look through their used inventory. Tesla dumps all their rejects at the auction, the cars that they don't want to retail to people. And even though this one's pretty clean inside and out, it came with an issue that they couldn't fix. All right, check this out. We close the door, we turn the car on, the airbag light's on, and then we've got this warning that says safety restraint system issue. service is required. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't stop any of the main functions of the car from working. It still drives just fine. Autopilot is online. Now, in the case of an accident, could it restrict the way that the safety system works? Absolutely. And that's the important part. But the funny thing is that Tesla attempted to fix this. And they didn't just attempt to fix it one time, they did multiple times. This is a lemon law buyback. So the previous customer of this car, the only owner that it had, took it to Tesla apparently 7 times over 51 days for the SRS light. Now look at what they did to try and fix this. They replaced the driver airbag 4 times over, replaced SCCM 3 times, and replaced the lower dash body harness 2 times. I want to know who authorized this many parts, this many times over to try and fix this thing. Now, on every single Lemon Law car I've ever bought, you get the same disclosure sheet, but the car comes fixed. It doesn't mean you won't experience the issue that the car was lemoned out for again. It just means that it's fixed. When I bought this at the auction, they did not disclose that there was an SRS light on. That could have been the fault of the auction not disclosing it, so I don't want to put that on Tesla. Had I seen that it had an SRS light on, I would have wanted to pay a little bit less for it. However, this is just the strangest thing, how it can go there 7 times, spend over 50 days there, and they haven't been able to figure it out. Now get this, the car's still under warranty. So I went on the Tesla app, I filed for service, and well, I got a service date 2 months out from the day that I filed. So it's kind of a crazy situation. Will the 8th time be a charm? Or will this thing be able to figure out what's wrong with this car before the Tesla Service Center can? To find out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the second this thing goes back to Tesla for service, we're going to see if they can get that SRS light off the dashboard, or if they continue to just throw the same 3 parts at it. If you're not already following me on Instagram, where I provide updates to projects like, apparently this newer Tesla has become a project. It goes live there before you'll see it here. Guys, I can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.